there.
Hello and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, March 16th, 2013. And may we be the first to wish you happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. And this has been such a full week. The news, there's tons of news, but we want to focus more on some philosophical ideas and kind of what's behind the news. And this blog by John Rappaport just sums up so well how people are manipulated into the place where we find ourselves today.
The basic idea is that there have been people that have been controlling people movements for a long time. As long as there have been governments and organizations and groups, there have been people that have been manipulating those groups and manipulating our desire to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. But the reason that the American experiment, as it's sometimes called, was and is so great is that what it did is, and we've nearly lost it, is that it empowered the individual. It said that the individual liberty is the source of our creativity, and the individual liberty is the source of our connection with God and blessing for one another. And that idea destroys the herd mentality. And Americans knew that in the beginning, but we've lost it now. And John Rappaport in this article doesn't focus so much on what's been lost, but the control mechanism itself and this herding instinct and the counterfeit ideal that it's built into us to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, but we're fed a counterfeit. And the something that bigger than ourselves really is our ability to be unique and form relationships and groups with each other on an ad hoc basis, totally decentralized and non-controlled. And that's what humans should be about if we want to reach our potential. So in order to go in that direction, you need to be able to see the counterfeit, see the way that it's been twisted. And John just does an amazing job of doing that in this blog, so we highly recommend everyone reading it.
And if you, even your friends who aren't necessarily liberty or truth people, will probably be able to grasp this if they can get past the word matrix. It's such a liberty buzzword that I personally wish he had not used that word here. But even if you can repackage it and copy and paste it into an email or something, they don't even have to know it's necessarily from John Rappaport. But this is just completely brilliant, and I honestly don't see how any thinking person would not be able to agree with this. And this goes along with the idea that's expressed in the blog.
Yep, it's not about sides. People are individuals. Individuals are not groups. Groups are just an idea, an abstraction, and they are an idea that certain individuals, namely the elite controllers, cabal, whatever you want to call them, use to dehumanize other individual people so they feel justified in treating their fellow humans unkindly, and really so that they can control them is really what it is. If I were to change the wording of that graphic, that's what it's all about, is people using groups and ideals to control people. It's always been about that by people that want to control other people.
So as we referred to this week, we're not focusing on news really. We're focusing on what's behind the news, and hopefully, you know, people get tired probably of hearing us talk about guns and drones, and people probably got tired of hearing us talk about abortions several years ago. I did notice this morning that there's a number 330 million abortions have been performed in China since they initiated their one-child policy. But people people, we sound like we're just hitting the same subjects over and over again. If people can become aware of how they have been manipulated, not just the accoutrements, the external signs, but on a deeper level, if people can become aware that they are not as free as they used to be, hopefully that will also help them to wake up.
And one easy way to see this, the Paul Craig Roberts blog here usually focuses on the economy, but in this one he's focusing on the combination of the economy and the propaganda world that we live in, the propaganda matrix, if you want to call it that. And he talks about how all this offshoring happened, and we were told that other people were going to be doing the dirty work, the dirty fingernail jobs, as he calls them, and then we're finding that was just a lie. We'd just been sold a lie, and the people had been lying right up to the point of no return, to the point where it's impossible to get it back. So there's just no capability of restoring manufacturing without just some major undertakings here. So this is what Paul Craig Roberts makes clear here, is the effect of propaganda in the deindustrialization of the United States. And when truth is suppressed, countries die. Yeah, that's what's happened. It's been by design.
And this Zerohedge article is pretty remarkable. It shows in a lot of depth how we have been trapped. And I found this particularly compelling. We have been gradually disempowered by a corporate state that, as Huxley foresaw, seduced and manipulated us through sensual gratification, cheap mass-produced goods, boundless credit, political theater, and amusement. While we were entertained, the regulations that once kept predatory corporate power in check were dismantled. Laws that once protected us were rewritten, and we were impoverished.
Yeah, Americans used to have a healthy distrust of big anything, big corporations or big government. One or the other is equally bad, but yet in the name of we're prosperous capitalists, we have cast aside those cautionary lessons that Americans, that used to be a part of the American fiber. And we're going to have to relearn those lessons and wake up real quick. This article highlights the two different control mechanisms and kind of shows how one leads to the other, namely Huxley leading to Orwell and Huxley's Brave New World, the pharmakia, the pharmaceutical control of humanity, and the Orwellian police state. And really they go hand in hand. It isn't so much one or the other, but we're not seeing the drugging down getting less as the police state increases. Both are increasing. Both control mechanisms are being used and will continue to be used until we decide enough is enough and we break free. And I don't mean that we necessarily have to have anything physical happen, but this awakening that is happening needs to accelerate, and it will accelerate.
You know, from the time we were kids in school, we speculated if we were in Nazi Germany when this began to happen, would we have seen it? Could we have stopped it? What do you think? Can we stop? Can we stop short of well, I guess having it get even worse?
I think the problem is that people don't understand context. That was a major problem in Nazi Germany, and we have an incomplete picture of Nazi Germany, so we think it's so easy to not get taken in by something so similar. What I mean is that the Germany was rising up out of the ashes and was fighting hard for their own survival, and Hitler became the mechanism to do it, to the point where he was Times Man of the Year. And of course that's part of the incipient propaganda mechanism in the United States even at that time. but there was a place that Germany was coming from, and they were having success, so everybody jumped on the bandwagon that was hard to resist. Well, you've got a similar thing going on. You've got the stock market at all-time highs, and even though the economy is really in shambles, there's the trappings that make it look good. You've got lots of new products being offered, technologies doing new amazing things, and yet beneath the surface it's crumbling. So unless somebody can get beneath the surface and say what's really going on here, which is what this article does brilliantly, then we're going to be following right in line with the same steps that happened in Nazi Germany. And the propagandists that were in charge of that really have had their successors manage this one too. So is humanity going to wise up this time and not let it happen? I think there's going to be more resistance. Number one, the historical tradition of America isn't going to allow it to happen, but yet the disemboweling has been so severe that it will be very difficult for us to collectively resist this. It's going to be difficult, but people are waking up.
Well, there's the drugging too, isn't I think isn't the percentage of people who are on SSRIs something like 25%? People who are on antidepressants?
Yeah, there's various control mechanisms, and that's a major one of it. I think it is as high as 25%, and higher among the kids. I think it's 25% among the school-age population, if I remember right, something like that. So, yeah, you know, in the Revolutionary War, the First American Revolution, there were people that were older and didn't have much to lose, and they were in many ways less caught in the system, and that may be, and they were the leaders, as I learned in a little Appleseed lecture of the actual boots on the ground revolution. So that there are those positions to step into today, and if you can get your internet skills up, do what we're doing, and get the truth out there.
Yeah, in any small way, we get about 30 views, but on YouTube. But that's not. We're just doing it because this is what we can do, and hopefully, you know, we'd actually rather reach one person who then reaches 1 million than reach 50, 60, 100 ourselves. So maybe you're that one person.
Is that what this article about needing a guru is about?
No, this article about needing a guru is actually, it kind of refers back to John Rappaport's blog that people want a wizard behind the curtain. People want somebody that they can tend to want, somebody that they can follow, but that it's really a trap.
Yeah. I remember we browsed some of this earlier. That it's a flaw in human nature, this desire to trust somebody more wise and powerful than ourselves. And you could say that we're created by God to trust Him, yet that trust always seems to get siphoned off into people that are con artists that are trying to use human energy to get their own way, feather their own nest, to do things unscrupulous to rob you. And we've got to wise up. We've got to stop doing that. This article talks about the New Age movement and certain buzzwords that are used to corral people, and it's exactly what John Rappaport is talking about. It doesn't really matter whether you're New Age, whether you're Christian, whatever. You want to feel a part of a group that is on the edge of some great big thing. And again, this is just an example of what John Rappaport is talking about, the same process. And we have to, if it's not going in the direction of decentralization and empowerment of the individual, if you're not getting more responsibility to and more freedom, because they go together, then you're going in the wrong direction, no matter how good and lofty the goals sound.
And if there's somebody that you have to come to and ask for affirmation,
Please,
that's
please, can I be free now? Is it okay if I have my freedom? Can I have my
am I
freedom,
am I
please?
am I good? Can I be loved? Am I, those deep questions that we want somebody to answer that really can really only be answered by God,
What
the
is that quote from
Creator.
Malcolm X where he says, if nobody can give you your freedom, if you're man enough, you stand up and take it, basically. I'm paraphrasing, something like that.
Yeah, and it's the same about your relationship with God, knowing who you are. And one of the issues with the whole Pope thing that this week that's kind of come up is the idea of a priesthood. That when Jesus died, the temple curtain that separated most of the people from the holy place was torn in two from top to bottom, and that was a clear indication from God that he didn't want to be separated from people. He doesn't want a priesthood anymore. He doesn't want gurus. He wants everybody to come directly to him.
Right. God was in Christ destroying the very idea of hierarchy. Yeah, there's leadership giftings, but that's shifting, and that's meant to shift over time. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be fluid. It's not meant to be rigid. So, whenever you see structures being built that are hierarchical, then know that that's a part of the old system, and it needs to change. Humanity is not going to be free as long as there are these hierarchical systems with people at the top, like popes that control other people, and even smaller versions of the same thing in the Protestant world.
And some of our friends who are in the liberty movement who aren't Christians have had difficulty, and rightly so, with faith because they look at the old model, and some temple historically had some bridge that was called moneda or something. That the idea is that that the priest class required the other people to pay to gain access to God. And in true Christian faith, that doesn't exist because we all have direct access to God.
Yeah, and let me mention another concept here that requires this is just launching into a whole other subject, but the idea of the public versus the private, and and that's a concept in law that is very foundational but not very well understood, and all of this manipulation that we're talking about happens in the quote public and by means of public forums, etc. But in the private is really where, from a lawful legal standpoint, that's where your freedoms lie. There's all kinds of ways to entrap you in commerce in public, but as long as you know how to stay in private, and then those hooks are less available, less you can do anything that you want to, private contract and with other individuals on an as-needed basis, and stay free. And that's one of the primary mechanisms that you can use to do that.
We did not want to close out without at least mentioning this, what happened this week, the new Pope. And we were hoping that it might be somebody who would take a stand against pedophilia and child abuse and bring some justice to the Catholic Church, but it doesn't really appear on the surface that is what's going to happen.
Yeah, this kind of puts it in a nutshell here. The date that he was elected, look at that, 3/13/13. Interesting choice of dates, eh? And then warrants issued for his arrest on Friday, 3/15, the Ides of March. So, for crimes against humanity and human trafficking. Yeah, this Pope is implicated in that stuff, and they don't even mention pedophilia here, but implicated in that too. If the New World Order were heading, just hypothetically, headed in the direction of a surveillance and police state, you think they might want to pick a man that had experience within such a state. Oh, they did that in Argentina in the 80s, didn't they? Oh, and there was a guy that was the head of the Argentinian church at that time, wasn't there? Well, that's the guy they've got as Pope. So, maybe they have plans to head in that direction. And somehow he managed to do all of his duties, and in the name of being apolitical, didn't have to take a stand against the atrocities that were committed, all of the abductions and disappearings that happened in Argentina in the 80s and early 90s. So maybe they've got their man. Look at the ears, better to hear you with, huh? Police surveillance state. I guess maybe they've found their man.
Oh, that's kind of a tragic thought. But we do thank you for tuning in this week to Pearls of Liberty, and we hope that you do have a happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, and we have friends who are all about the Druids and what great people they were, and and they are not huge fans of St. Patrick, but I'm not entirely convinced he was either a great man or a terrible man, probably somewhere in between, like most of us.
I think there's some good evidence that St. Patrick really did have some supernatural power from God, and I think that there were probably attempts that the Roman Church used to use that gifting to increase the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. But that's a whole amazing area, is how freely God gives gifts and how unscrupulous people can be in manipulating the people that are gifted, or even the gifted people themselves doing the manipulation. It's quite a thing to behold. And we'll close this week, as I usually say, by see the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it. Walk your walk. You are the one you've been waiting for.